Nice to meet all of you. My name is Alexander. I'm a marketing manager of TeamCity. As Yegor said, 2 times a year, we release a new major version of TeamCity. And today I'm here to tell you about the new features in TeamCity 2020.2, which will be released in just several weeks from now, in the end of November. Before I start, I want to say that we are still several weeks from the release, and there is a probability that not 100% of these features will make it into the release. And for every feature for which I'm not sure about, I will mention it in the presentation. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a lot to cover. So let's get started with every developer's very first interaction with TeamCity, the login screen. And the first thing that you'll notice here are these GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab icons. And as you would expect, they allow you to authenticate on the TeamCity server using external credentials. After you click the icon, you are redirected to the external service and log in there. The service then returns your email address, and if TeamCity recognizes the email, you will be authenticated as the respective user. And if the email is unknown, then not. Or you can set up TeamCity to create a new user profile for you. This is configured in the authentication settings using the new HTTP modules. These modules support internal user directory features of the services, such as GitHub organizations and GitLab groups. And TeamCity administrators, of course, have full control over all these users, and they can even manually map external user accounts with existing TeamCity users. And one more thing about these new authentication features is that we will also support on-premise installations of GitHub and GitLab. These two are still in development, but they should make it into the release. Next, let's take a look at new integrations. As you probably heard, Atlassian recently announced the retirement of Bamboo Server. And we see that a lot of developers started to look out for other on-premise solutions that can work with Bitbucket or Bitbucket Cloud. TeamCity has been supporting Bitbucket for a really long time already. But what makes TeamCity 2020.2 even better is that we're adding support for Bitbucket Cloud pull requests. And this brings us to supporting pull requests or merge requests in 4 services now. So GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps, and Bitbucket. Our TeamCity inside its UI will show you details on each PR, automatically run the build, and give you all other related features, such as you can, for example, auto-merge the new code if the build is successful. There is one limitation related to Bitbucket that is important to know. It's that for Bitbucket, we will support only pull requests that are made in the same repository, not from the forks. Next, let's turn to build runners. TeamCity 2020.2 provides the all-new build runner for Python. The new build runner automatically detects Python installations on build agents and allows running Python programs. It works on all supported platforms on Windows, Linux, and macOS, and you can run Python build step in a virtual environment using pipenv or virtualenv, or Docker is supported as well. There is a variety of tools. The runner supports all common testing frameworks and code inspection tools. If you were using the alt plugin to run your Python projects, then you can see that the new runner has many more features. And we recommend all users of the alt plugin to move to the new Python runner. It is bundled, so it will be available in TeamCity out of the box, no installation required, and it will be further supported by our team. The results of your Python builds and tests are reported in the TeamCity UI in the same way how it works with all other build runners. You can see what changed, analyze failures, assign investigations, and use all your favorite features of TeamCity. And of course, you can set up builds with the new Python runner using the Kotlin DSL. If you already know how to set up configurations as a Kotlin code, then it should be easy for you. And by the way, if you're not familiar with setting up your CI/CD as code or want to refresh, then you gotta check out this talk by my colleague Marco later today. At 1:15 EST time, he will take you for a deep dive into the Kotlin DSL scripts for TeamCity configuration. Next is support for JetBrains space in commit status publisher. So as already mentioned today, you may have heard that our company has recently announced a new product called Space. Space is an integrated team environment that comes with a lot of different tools for modern software development. It is currently in AAP in early access program, so it's not publicly released yet, but the public release is coming soon. And at JetBrains, we do a lot of dogfooding, which means that we use our own tools to develop our own tools. And Space is not an exception. It's one of the main tools that we use internally for sharing knowledge, for hosting code. It has a built-in Git repository, for doing code reviews, and much more. And TeamCity 2020.2 comes with an integration with Space. Its commit status publisher build feature now allows to automatically publish status of your builds to your JetBrains Space project. This happens in real time. It works very smoothly and basically helps us get feedback faster and do things faster. So this is what CI is all about. That's it for integrations. And next, I want to tell you about some core CI improvements. And the big news here is agentless build steps. So what is it? Let's take a look. TeamCity has a lot of features. It integrates with a lot of tools. It has a lot of plugins and integrations, and it can be used to build, test, deploy pretty much all sorts of projects. But what if your release pipeline employs an external service? So imagine that there is an external deployment service that requires a lot of time to complete its job, probably even has a manual approval step, something like this. So after you call it from a TeamCity build agent, and as you know, all the work is done by TeamCity build agents. So in this situation, you could spend hours or probably even days just waiting for this job to finish or for somebody to approve the release. And this build agent will remain unused because it will have to wait for this external job to finish. And wouldn't it be cool if it was possible to execute external jobs without occupying TeamCity build agents? And well, in TeamCity 2020.2, we're doing just that. Now, your builds can send a special instruction to release the agent, and the agent becomes available so it can run other builds. And this remaining step, it completes in the agentless mode. One important note here is that this is an advanced feature, because you will, of course, want to see the progress of this agentless step in the TeamCity UI and know when it's finished. And to do it, you will have to make sure that this external service, which could be your own custom script, which makes it easier. But anyways, you need to make sure that this external service reports back to TeamCity. For this, we are providing a new REST API on the TeamCity server, which external services can use to report the build status and progress. So yeah, this is how it works. The number of agentless build steps that you can run depends on the number of agent licenses that you have on your server. So if you're using the professional version of TeamCity, which is free, then you can run your common 3 builds on 3 agents and also run 3 tasks on external services. And if you're using the enterprise version of TeamCity, say with 10 agent licenses, then you can simultaneously run 10 builds on 10 agents. And in addition to that, run 10 agentless build steps. So the number of agentless build steps equals to the number of agent licenses. That's it for agentless builds. Now let's talk about tests. Failed tests don't always mean broken code. Often, if your test passes at least once over several runs, this means that the code works correctly. For example, your UI test may fail due to a network problem, but succeed on the second run. And you will, of course, want to mark it as successful because there are no rendering problems and the failure is not related to the error in the code. And TeamCity has always had a strict policy about failed tests. So any test failure always resulted in a failed build step. And this is, of course, not convenient in many testing scenarios. And to support more workflows, version 2020.2 will allow you to choose how to deal with these situations. So you can keep your build green, even if some tests appear flaky within the same build. This feature can be enabled in the failure conditions section on the build configuration settings. And yeah, I've seen some comments in the chat earlier. Yeah, we think that many developers will find it very useful for their workflows. Multi-server capabilities. So, you can make multiple TeamCity servers work together in a cluster. And yeah, you do this to get a high level of performance and reliability. And this is primarily required for very large installations with hundreds and thousands of build agents. Our goal here is to enable your team to keep working with TeamCity while the primary server is under maintenance. And in version 2020.2, we're adding 3 new features. First, secondary nodes now allow you to edit project level settings. Second, they now allow you to edit global server settings. And finally, we're also allowing plugin developers to implement plugins that work on secondary nodes. This third feature is still in development, work in progress, and it may not make it into the release, but hopefully it will. Next, let's move to administration. The cleanup feature, it became more powerful. It now supports cron-like expressions, so you can now customize the schedule of the server cleanup. So it can start with any necessary regularity, for example, on weekends or twice a day or whatever you want. Then there are improvements to the disk usage monitor. We see that an increasing number of our users prefer storing build artifacts in the cloud, for example, in Amazon S3. And to address this demand, we have improved the disk usage monitor, and now it supports external storage. So TeamCity now detects not only local, but also remote artifact directories configured on the server and analyzes the disk space occupied by builds in all of these storage locations. Next is access tokens. Sometimes you need an access token for a very short time, for example, to run in some scripts. And once the token is issued, you have to remember to revoke it after script's finished. And starting with version 2020.2, TeamCity allows you to generate time-limited access tokens. So you can use these tokens in scripts or REST API requests, and after the token's time limit expires, TeamCity will automatically revoke it. And there is one more related feature. It's in development right now. We're planning to allow creating tokens with different permissions. So, for example, tokens that can be used only to access build artifacts or to only run builds but not stop them. and so on. So it's not yet clear if we will finish this feature before the release, but you should know that we're working on it. And finally, let's talk about the new UI. So you know that last year we introduced a new experimental UI codenamed Sakura. The problem with our old UI is that it was built using technologies that are now over 10 years old. So it reached its limits a very long time ago, and it's becoming harder and harder for us to maintain it. And the new UI, on the other hand, it's fast, it's built using modern technologies, and it allows us to develop new features easier and ship them faster. If you haven't yet checked it out, then I highly recommend you to do so. To turn on the Sakura UI, all you got to do is click this blue icon in the top right corner of the screen, and it will be enabled for you. Or you can just turn it on in your UI settings. These are per user settings, and it won't affect all other users on your service, but only you yourself. So what's new? The first thing that we're changing is the header. And as you can see, it is now dark, it's black. I think it's beautiful, and it doesn't look like software from early 2000s. In fact, we liked it so much that in TeamCity 2020.2, we're going to replace it in the old UI as well, not only in the experimental UI. Then we're working on a completely new build queue page. So for each queued build, you will be able to see the changes, the agent where the build will run, the estimated time when it will be started, what triggered the build, and all other important information. You can select builds that you don't need and remove them from the queue, or vice versa, move them on the top. This is still work in progress, but I really hope that we will make it into the release. And yeah, one important thing that I want to say here, that here and in all other places in the Sakura UI, we take great care to make sure that the new page, like this build queue page, has all the features and supports all the use cases of the classic UI. So if you're switching from the old UI, there's nothing that you will miss. Next is the new test history page. It looks fresh. It also has this nice redesigned bar chart that gives you statistics on your test. Yeah. On the build dependencies page, we have improved two things. The timeline view now shows not only finished and started builds, as it did earlier, but also queued builds. And the build chain view now shows their builds dependencies from other builds. I think these two views are great. They really help you understand the big picture of how your software is built and how your pipelines really work. And yeah, if you haven't seen them, you should go and check them out. Also, we have implemented build log search. This was one of the most popular requests from our users, and now it became so much easier to browse the build log and debug your CI setup and find errors. And I think that this is one of those experiences that make you really start loving to use the product. So it's super convenient to work with, and you should check it out as well. And the last thing that I want to mention is the new plugin framework that allows you to develop your own plugins for the Sakura UI. Later today, there will be a talk by my colleague, Dennis, at 2:15 EST time, where he will tell you more about plugin development. So that's it for 2020.2. Let me recap. We're now allowed to authenticate using external OAuth providers. Currently, we support GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. There are new integrations, Bitbucket Cloud pull requests, new build runner for Python, and JetBrains space in commit status publisher. Core CI improvements. These are agentless build steps and the feature that allows you to mark flaky tests within one build as successful. New features for multi-server setup. So secondary nodes are now not read-only, but allow editing project-level settings and global server settings. New administration features, customizable cleanup schedule, support for external storage in disk usage monitor, and time-limited access tokens. And last but not least, many improvements to the new Sakura UI. So these, of course, are the highlights of TeamCity 2020.2, but also there are hundreds of bug fixes and other minor changes and improvements. And yeah, that's it for my talk. I hope you liked what you've heard here. And now you know what you will get after updating to TeamCity 2020.2. A lot of these features are already available in EAP. You can find the download link on our blog at blog.jetbrains.com/TeamCity. Also, subscribe for our blog to not miss the release announcement, or you can also follow us on Twitter, or just subscribe for product updates on the TeamCity product page on the JetBrains website. Yeah, and that's it. I don't know. We must have some time left to answer a couple of questions.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time. Thanks, Alexander. This was really helpful. So there's a lot of good discussion happening in the chat right now. So I don't want to take away from some of that. A lot of that is focused on some of the existing features that are already in TeamCity. In some ways, you may be able to utilize them in the future. So I don't think we'll dive into a whole lot of that during the presentation today. Do have some questions for you, Alexander. One of the things you mentioned is, this is just a subset of some of the features that are going to be available in the 2020.2 release. If I wanted to find out more information about some of the bugs that are being fixed or some of the minor changes that maybe weren't discussed there, is there a way for me to see what else is included in that release?
Oh, yeah, sure. So as we mentioned earlier, today we have a public issue tracker. So you can just, the link should be in the chat. You can just go to the public issue tracker and see all the features that are in the works right now and all the bugs that we're working, and find the version where they will be fixed. And also with every release that we make, we publish release notes, and we list all the links to all these issues in our issue tracker, and you can just go and find everything. And if there's some specific bug that you want to report, just don't hesitate to go and create the respective issue.
Okay, great. So moving back to some of the other releases, you mentioned that we're adding our own Python build runner. PyTests are pretty commonly used inside the Python environment. Are those going to be natively supported inside the TeamCity testing UI the same way JUnit, XUnit is supported right now?
Yes, the Python integration, it's just supports pretty much everything that we could support. So all the major use cases for a common Python development workflow are supported in the new Python runner, and we just recommend it to go and check it out. It supports virtual environments, pip-env, virtual-env, different versions of Python, PyTest, linters, and everything else. All the common tools.
Excellent. Early in the talk, you talked a little bit about the high availability multi-node setup that's available. So I want to touch on that for a minute, because I think it's a feature, at least in my conversations with our customers, a lot of people aren't aware of. So, if you are running a large TeamCity instance and you are looking for either some performance improvements or running a high availability setup, as Alexander mentioned, we aren't there yet, right? We're not 100% to a full high availability setup, but we do support a multi-node architecture. So with that multi-node architecture, as you saw on the slide, you can run 2 TeamCity server instances and delegate some of the responsibilities between those 2 instances. So I don't think there's a question there. I just wanted to reiterate that so I don't have to keep talking about it on my phone calls with the customers.